Consumer advocates estimate that on average, Australians pay 50% more than overseas shoppers for downloaded music and games, as well as for computer software and hardware. For example, the movie Toy Story cost $24.99 to download here. Other countries pay just $10. Federal Labor MP Ed Husic is behind a parliamentary inquiry into IT pricing, which is holding its first public hearing in Sydney today. He says there are some notable absences.
Well, I've been disappointed that big players like Apple and Microsoft and Adobe haven't been willing to necessarily publicly engage in the inquiry, in some cases preferring private meetings or effectively allowing the industry association to talk on their behalf. I think people have had legitimate questions as to why prices might be between 50 to 80% different for Australian consumers compared to their US counterparts, and I don't think it's necessarily good enough that they're not willing to step up and answer those questions publicly.
Those IT companies, though, have said that the reason their products cost more here than overseas is because of the higher costs that they encounter here, and they cite GST, customs duty, regulatory requirements that sometimes mean business costs are up to, they quote, 500% more here than overseas.
Well, two things. One is, in the absence of the actual vendors themselves, these big IT firms themselves, we can't get to the bottom of that. The second is, we've had some really good evidence, particularly by organisations like Choice, that show, for instance, that the claims of customs duties that are non-existent for items under $1,000, or that rents only add 3% to the total makeup of costs, or in the case of warranties, where, for example, in the Australian instance, we've harmonised our warranty law to have effectively brought under a national umbrella. But if you go to the US, you might have jurisdictions out of the 50 different states of the US putting different warranties in place. So again, on paper, it doesn't seem like the type of arguments the industry is putting forward stack up, and they really need to explain again how it might cost between 60 to 80% more for buying software and hardware here compared to the US.
So you've got a public hearing in Sydney today. Who have you heard from so far?
We had the Australian Information Industry Association speak on behalf of the big players, and we've also had the Australian Publishers Association talk about e-book pricing and some of the challenges that are confronting Australian publishers, and that their contribution was as enlightening as well, because it's obviously not all rosy for them, and they are facing a very competitive market. But we're hoping through the course of this that we do get some movement. We're seeing some movement in prices as a result of the public questions being raised, but we've got a long way to go.
Once the inquiry is over, and if you do find that price gouging has occurred, what then? Can you force changes?
Well, I think what's becoming evident through the course of the inquiry and through the comments made by the public and submissions by others, I think this will start to gravitate towards two key issues: competition law, as it affects price discrimination, what people are experiencing right now, and also this vexed issue that's allowed under trade agreements of companies geo-blocking. That is, for example, if you go to use, let's just take an example, Apple, if you use their iTunes store here, you can't use their iTunes store in the US because you're geo-blocked effectively. Your IP address is noted and you can't take advantage of beneficial prices overseas. So I think trade agreements and the ability of those agreements to allow this to occur will become or take a bigger part of the focus of the inquiry.
Ed Husic, thank you.
Thank you very much.